All right, let's dive into some Hindu mythology. We're talking Kaal Bhairava today. You know, that Hindu trinity. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Well, Shiva's energy kind of sets the stage for us, I think. Kaal Bhairava, this fierce, maybe even enigmatic figure, is a direct manifestation of Shiva's destructive power. But it's way more than just destruction.
Yeah, that's what makes Kaal Bhairava so fascinating, right? He's this terrifying figure, skulls, serpents, riding a dog, but then also deeply revered as a protector, a guardian, even a dispenser of justice almost. We're going to unpack that today.
For sure. And we've got so many sources here. Ancient hymns, interpretations of mythology, even modern stuff about symbolism. And one thing that pops out right away is this myth about Brahma, the creator god, right?
Yeah.
Having got an ego trip.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Brahma got a little too into his role, felt he was more important than Shiva.
So what happens? Shiva grounds them or something?
Nope, Shiva sees this arrogance and manifests Bhairava. It's even described like Bhairava was born from Shiva's third eye, or even a nail on his finger.
Wild. So that kind of tells you right away, like, power, connection to Shiva.
Exactly. And what does Bhairava do? Chops off one of Brahma's heads.
Wow. Pretty stark imagery, huh?
Oh yeah, it's meant to show Bhairava's role, putting even powerful beings in check.
And that severed head, that becomes part of how Bhairava is shown, right? Always with the skull.
Absolutely. It's not just a shock thing, though. That skull means something. Represents conquering ego, shedding pride, ignorance. Severing Brahma's head, it's not punishment, it's more like enlightenment. Frees Brahma from his own ego.
Like a forced awakening, a reality check from the cosmos.
Exactly.
But there are other origin stories too, right?
Right.
Like Shiva creating Bhairava to defeat some demon. And there's that connection to the Ashtamatrikas, these powerful female deities.
Yeah, you're right. Multiple stories. Each one shows a different part of Bhairava. That demon slaying one, that's his protector role. The Ashtamatrikas link him to Shakti, the feminine energy in Hinduism.
So he's a fierce protector, but also connected to feminine energy. Kind of balances out, right?
Exactly. Creation and destruction, masculine, feminine, all essential for cosmic order. Yin and yang, but cosmic.
Okay, so there are layers here. Let's get into that classic Bhairava image. Adorned with serpents, tiger skin, riding a dog. Not exactly peaceful.
Definitely makes an impression. But remember, in Hindu iconography, every detail means something. Serpents. Those are transformation, renewal. They shed their skin like the cycles of life and death.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
And that dog, even though he's snarling, loyalty, protection.
Hey, that fierce thing represents protection?
Think about it. Dogs are loyal. They guard their space, protect their pack. So Bhairava's dog, it's an extension of his protection. He's a guardian, not just of people, but of the whole cosmic order.
Like a cosmic watchdog, keeping everything in check. And speaking of protection, there's that whole thing with travelers, seeking Bhairava's blessing before a journey. They offer cashew garlands, light lamps.
Yeah, that's a great example, how those myths turn into real practices. The garland, the lamp, it's all about appealing to his protection. When you're facing danger, uncertainty.
Asking for some help on the road. Keep me safe, Kaal Bhairava.
Exactly.
So cool how these rituals connect us to like centuries of tradition. Shows respect for the power of the divine in everyday life. Speaking of which, that whole Kotwal of Kashi thing.
Ah, yes. Kotwal, that means like a chief of police, a guardian. And Kashi is another name for Varanasi, one of the holiest cities in Hinduism.
Okay, yeah.
So Bhairava is the protector of this super sacred city. Shows his link to law, order, justice. And remember, Varanasi, it's believed to be where souls can escape the cycle of death and rebirth. So that makes his role even more important.
Right, makes sense. Such a powerful deity protecting a city that's so spiritually important. But it's not just showing up, right? Yeah. There are instructions, how to worship, when, even what direction you face. Apparently facing the wrong way is bad news.
You got it. Rituals, directions, the crucial in Hinduism, it's aligning yourself with cosmic energies, like tuning a radio, you know?
Yeah.
Worshipping Bhairava at midnight, especially on Fridays. Super potent, they say. Some even believe you can get visions.
Midnight worship, visions, adds to the whole mystique.
It does.
What is it about that time that's so special?
Well, there's a belief that the line between human and divine is thinner at midnight. The energy helps with spiritual stuff. And Friday is traditionally for the goddess Shakti. So it connects Bhairava back to that feminine energy.
So it's not just worshiping some god out there. It's about tapping into that energy. Within ourselves, in the cosmos, seeing those connections.
Exactly. That's what makes exploring figures like Kaal Bhairava so fascinating. They push us to see beyond simple explanations and look for the deeper meaning. Welcome back. We're deep in Kaal Bhairava territory. We've talked about him as a protector, his wild appearance, but there's this whole concept we haven't touched on yet. Tantra.
Tantra, huh? That's a word you hear, but I'm not sure I get it, honestly. What's that got to do with Kaal Bhairava?
It's a great question, and it takes us into like a whole different way of seeing him. In Tantra, he's not just a deity out there that you worship. He's also like an internal force. Represents the inward journey, confronting your own darkness to reach a higher state.
So it's not about being afraid of this skull-carrying god, but recognizing there's a Bhairava inside us, a force that breaks down those barriers holding us back.
That's a great way to put it. The destructive side we see, all those fierce depictions, it's actually directed inward. He's not destroying the world, he's helping us destroy ego. The illusions stopping us from reaching our potential.
Interesting. It makes those origin stories even more profound, like Brahma losing his head. Almost a metaphor for the ego being shattered so enlightenment can happen.
Exactly. And there's this concept of Bhairava and Bhairavi, his female counterpart.
Yeah.
That emphasizes balance within Tantra. It's not just masculine or feminine, it's the two working together. Ultimate unity, opposites merging for liberation.
So Tantra is like a framework for using those forces Bhairava represents, cultivating them within us.
Precisely. And it's interesting how this internal transformative side shows up in the Kaal Bhairava Ashtakam, that hymn we mentioned. It calls him the giver of all prosperity, the one who lovingly liberates devotees from suffering and sin.
Yeah, it goes beyond his looks, his myths. It's about his power to bless, to guide people toward liberation.
Right. It shows that even though he represents destruction, this raw energy, he's ultimately good. He helps us shed what's holding us back so we can be free, fulfilled.
And there's that line about his laughter-shaking creation, a force to be reckoned with, even if it's ultimately for our own good. What does that laughter mean, though?
Powerful image, right? Like a cosmic tremor, reminds us that everything's impermanent. A call to detach from the material world to search for something deeper, more lasting.
Don't get attached to things you think are permanent because it's all in flux. Something like that.
Exactly. But then the Ashtakam also says he's the ruler of ghosts and spirits. Kind of spooky. I thought this was all protection and enlightenment. Why the ghosts?
Yeah, that's a shift.
Well, remember, in Hinduism, death isn't always the end. It's a transition. And Bhairava, being the Lord of Time, transformation. He's connected to that realm. He guides souls through this transition, makes sure they go to the right place.
So he's not just guarding the living, he's a guide for the dead too, overseeing that whole cycle.
Exactly. He's reminding us that life and death are intertwined, part of this bigger cosmic dance.
Our sources also mention specific rituals, offerings people do for Bhairava's blessings. Ghee lamps, coconuts, honey, even specific flowers, leaves. Why are these offerings important?
It's a way of showing respect, devotion, creating a connection between us and the divine. And in many traditions, giving is a way to receive. You offer to the deity, and you open yourself to receiving in return.
A give and take, acknowledging their power, seeking guidance. But what about people who aren't Hindu, don't practice Tantra? What can we take from learning about Kaal Bhairava?
Good question. I think it challenges how we see a deity. He's not just love and compassion, he's destruction, transformation, even a little bit of fear. He's got all those complexities, the paradoxes that are inside us too.
So broadening our view of the divine, seeing it as more than we might first think.
Exactly. And his story reminds us that even the scariest forces can be good. Destruction can be part of creation. And real power often comes from facing our own darkness.
A message that goes beyond cultures, traditions. We've all got those shadows to deal with. And figures like Bhairava remind us that facing them can lead to liberation, to growth. All right, final part of our deep dive here. Into Kaal Bhairava. We've done myths, symbolism, Tantra. But there's one more thing to unpack, his whole deal with time itself.
It's true, we've seen how he's all these opposites, right? Destroyer, protector, fierce, but also good. And time just adds this whole other level.
Yeah, Kala means time in Sanskrit. But what does it actually mean? A deity connected to time. It's not like he's carrying a clock around, right?
Not exactly. It's not literal timekeeping, more like he represents time's essence, the flow, the power, how it's everywhere. That cycle of creation and destruction, birth, death, that constant back and forth of existence.
So he's not bound by time. He is time, in a way. Whoa, that's kind of mind-blowing.
It is. And if you think about it, time changes everything. It wears down mountains, ends empires, even our bodies, right? They can't escape time forever.
So Bhairava's destructive side is really just time's power to break things down, change them. And that's not bad, it's just how the universe works.
Exactly. But time also creates, right? Seasons changing, new life, that constant renewal everywhere. Bhairava's got both sides. The force that clears the way and the power that drives it all forward.
Ultimate recycler. Breaks down so it can be reborn. And that makes this Varanasi connection even more interesting.
You got it. Varanasi, that city of liberation where the cycle ends. It's like Bhairava, the Lord of Time. He has a key to going beyond time, breaking free.
So if we understand Bhairava, that part of time within us, maybe we see our own mortality differently, our place in this whole cosmic dance.
That's a deep thought. You know, a lot of spiritual traditions say that facing death, accepting it, helps us live more in the present.
Like acknowledging the clock is ticking makes each second more precious. We stop wasting time, focus on what really matters.
And that's where Bhairava's protection comes back around. Not just from outside threats, but from the stuff inside us. Fear, attachment, ignorance, guiding us toward liberation, protecting us from the suffering that comes from holding on too tight.
So even though he's got skulls and serpents, all that scary stuff, even though he's time, destruction, he's a guide. Helps us through it all.
Exactly. Reminds us that even with all the change, there's this bigger order. A dance we're all in. And understanding that dance, going with the flow of time, that's how we can find real fulfillment, real freedom.
Wow, what a journey this has been. Started with a scary guide, ended up talking about time, death, the whole meaning of existence.
That's the beauty of these old myths. They're not just stories, they're like mirrors, reflecting what's inside us, our struggles, what we hope for.
In Kaal Bhairava, he's given us a lot to think about. Facing our fears, accepting change, finding liberation.
He shows us there's always more to learn, deeper to go, even in the darkest parts of these stories.
Well said. We'll leave you to ponder the mysteries of Kaal Bhairava, the Lord of Time. May his lessons help you on your own path. Until next time, keep diving deep.